Over the last 10 years, I've taken a lot of photos of a lot of different things, and I've been compensated very well for all of these photos of all these different things. I've used different camera bodies, different lenses, different techniques for lighting, but one thing has always stayed consistent, and it's this lens that more than any other lens has gotten me images that make clients say, I want to come back and work with you, or refer me to someone else. This lens gives a feeling of togetherness when used the right way that I kind of feel gives my portfolio that extra bit of pop. And it's a lens that a lot of people don't offhand immediately recommend to people when what lens should you start with or what lens should you have in your bag. This lens has made me the most money, hands down, period. And I have the receipts to back it up as well as the invoices. Now the lens that I'm talking about isn't going to be your 85mm 1.2 G Master. It's not even going to be your 50mm, which I love. And it's definitely not 35mm, but that's not because the lens isn't good, it's because of user error. The lens that I know for a fact has made me the most money and brings my clients the most joy whenever reviewing images, hands down has to be 28mm. All day, twice on Sunday. 28mm isn't a sexy pick whenever it comes to the most valuable lenses amongst photographers in general, and I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to convince you this is the best lens ever, but I am trying to tell you there is a place for this in your bag, and if you're someone like me who struggles with a 35mm lens, or who feels like 24 is just way out of whack for day-to-day use, including for client work, 28 sits right in the middle-ish enough to be able to satisfy even the most aggressive of wide-angle photographers. Now, 28mm is 28mm is 28mm. It didn't matter whether I was shooting on Canon, Fujifilm, Leica, whatever it is. 28mm, the field of view is just going to be 28mm field of view. I haven't ever really cared about aperture speed. I haven't ever really cared about coatings. And this one right here is just a f2.8. It's not in a spherical. It's just a good-ass good enough lens. Now, why is this good-ass good enough lens one that has consistently brought in the most money for me? Well, let's talk about two reasons. There are two things that a 28mm does whenever it comes to feel for the image that I believe it does better than any other focal length there is in the business. And those two things are gathers a feeling of togetherness and gathers a feeling of chaos. Now immediately you're gonna be saying, what the hell do either of those mean? And I totally get it, but let me explain. And once I start to explain, and if you're someone that uses a 28mm, you'll be able to understand what I'm saying almost immediately, and you'll understand why this lens has been so effective for me. Let's start off with a feeling of togetherness. Your first thought is gonna be, oh, wide angle, 28mm, you must be doing group photos. The feeling and showing of togetherness through the proximity of everyone. And even though that is something that is 100% true, that's not all there is. 28mm has a unique perspective ability to be able to layer in a way to where things don't feel too far out of whack, but also the distance allows for each subject in the shot to be able to tell their own story. 28mm is one of my favorite lenses for layering in this way and using emotion of a center subject surrounded by the subjects around it, people, places, things, animals, it doesn't matter, to be able to continue to tell the story of the emotion behind it. This right here is my favorite documentary and editorial lens. It's not one that I always use for portraits, but whenever I do, it is something that I feel comes out great because I'm able to tell the story of the area around it. Now, the area may never be in focus, it may never be as detailed, and you may never be able to tell where it's at. But the little bit of extra scenery that you're able to get helps you gather more to the image. The image feels whole. Now, I'm not saying that other photos from other lenses don't feel whole, but I'm saying there is a complete difference between even a lens like this at 1.4 compared to an 85mm at 1.4, where isolation is key and you're pulling the subject from their environment and from others around them. This lens focuses in on making sure that your background and the surrounding area contributes to the subject. 28mm just gives a feeling of togetherness, and it's not a feeling that is unintentional, it's a feeling that can only be captured with this lens. Now, of course, you can step backward with a 35 or forward with a 24, but then we start getting into the discussion of compression and what it does to your image. You see those lead lines that are leading? They don't lead the same on 24 or 35. And yes, you can train your eye and train yourself to gather these things, but 28 for me is a natural place of togetherness where my eye automatically tunes to what it's supposed to see. And honestly, again, this is the moneymaker. Now, the second thing about this lens, the feeling of chaos. And this can be in street photography or in event photography, and it is absolutely hands down my favorite thing about this lens. 28mm has this amazing value in the fact that no matter if you're autofocus or manual focus, you don't have to have the camera body up to your eye in order to take an image that has the information needed. And because of that, the different perspectives are truly truly magnificent. Quirky angles, off-camera flash, quick shots, and just everything in between attribute themselves to a lens like this that is wide enough to be able to understand what's going on in the room, but still with just enough compression, unlike 24mm, to not make the room feel empty whenever there aren't enough subjects. These quirky angles, these different ways of shooting from the hip, from up above, using off-camera flash and everything in between, just knowing that if I take the shot, regardless of how close I am to someone, or regardless of what the setup looks like, I know that I'm going to get something that tells the story. This is a lens that, again, whenever I'm shooting this for events, is something that I'm not shooting from the eye. I'm shooting up top from an angle usually downward facing, or something that whenever I'm in street photography, I'm shooting from the chest, from right here, or actually from the waist. It is a way for me to be able to curve around and kind of bend my point of view in order to get what I need. And I believe the images look really, really cool and unique. They give me a perspective of someone being a little bit taller, they give me a perspective of someone being a little bit shorter, and you never actually get one plain field of view from me whenever it comes to these events or from street photography. This is something that is very beneficial to the eye of your client. They may see it and think, wow, this creatively is something different that I wouldn't be used to seeing, especially when we're all used to taking our photos from eye level. And it gives an extra different layer to a lot of your images that otherwise, unfortunately, would not be there with a 50, a 35, or an 85 itself. Now, a lot of these things work for me, and a lot of these things are things that I like to do and I find interesting. I'm not saying that you have to find them interesting, and I'm definitely not saying that you have to do them, but I am saying there has been a benefit to using this lens. There has been a benefit from the fact that this lens right here does produce the most images that happen to be images that are passed along from clients to potential future clients. And it's something that, again, I enjoy. I love shooting this lens. 28mm is one of my favorite lenses of all time, and it's always a battle between this and 50mm for who has my heart. And a lot of the time, it just depends on the month and the day. Sometimes I get bored of 50, sometimes I get bored of 28, sometimes I'm in a rut and I just have to switch things up. But at the end of the day, I know this is one of the two lenses I can fall back on along with 50mm. And also these lenses, especially the way I shoot them, because I always shoot them stop down, maybe anywhere between f4 to f11 unless I'm extreme low light and I don't have any artificial lighting of my own, they're always gonna be sharp. They're always gonna handle light well. And more than anything, they're always gonna be there for you in the right field of view for when you're in close proximity with people, places, and things that you really enjoy and you want to capture. Now, nothing I said is gospel or law about how you should use 28mm or saying that 28mm is going to be your bread and butter. 35 may be that for you, 50 may be that for you, 24 may be that for you. I'm not saying that one lens is better than the other. I'm just saying that for me, this is a lens that I can constantly rely on. And if you're someone looking for a wide angle lens, and 24 or 21 or anything like that may not be your taste, and 35 you're kind of struggling with, this may be the lens to add to your repertoire, add to your bag, along with a 50 or an 85. But listen, more than anything, it works for me. And because of that, it's gonna get consistent use from me. With that all being said, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you understand where I'm coming from. Let me know, of course. Take it light, but take it, and have a good one.